Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program, live and national. Happy to be here with you. And you've probably heard the news by now that the shutdown has been averted. Now, if you were listening to this show yesterday, I think I told you that Chuck Schumer was going to capitulate to Trump. That was my suspicion. I was right. And I don't do that to break my arm, patting myself on the back. I do that because this stuff is just so simple. What would they have gained? Now, my comments yesterday were that they're probably assessing who benefits most from a shutdown. Is it them or Trump? Now, you know where I stood. I think I said it 10 times. I love me a good government shutdown, right? And all the money that goes around along with being shut down all those days, right? You're saving money. So a true government-loving leftist could never in good faith shut down the government because they live for this. They worship at the altar of big government. So of course Chuck Schumer wasn't going to do it. He was just playing the game, like I said yesterday, to see if he could get something out of these people, whether it was some climate policies. He needed to squeeze something out of his colleagues in the Senate to say, give me this, I'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. And ultimately, Chuck Schumer caved. Trump won. Listen to this.
I believe it is my job to make the best choice for the country to minimize the harms to the American people. Therefore, I will vote to keep the government open and not shut it down. There is nobody in the world, nobody, who wants to shut the government down more than Donald Trump and more than Elon Musk. We should not give it to them. And make no mistake, Democrats will continue to fight what Donald Trump is doing. Everything that Trump, Musk, and Republicans have done so far has a clear goal. Again, cutting taxes for billionaires, eviscerate Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. This is the fight that matters most, and the fight we must focus on. All the chaos we have seen, all the lawlessness, all the grift and corrupt behavior. It's all about rigging the system in favor of the ultra-wealthy at the expense of working Americans. This is the fight the American people need to see. This is the fight that Democrats will win. A shutdown will be a costly distraction from this all-important fight. I yield the floor.
Well, thank you for yielding the floor, Chuck. And I just want to reiterate, you're not losing any money on a shutdown. All right, so you got to pay the government workers back for the days that they're furloughed or whatever. But it doesn't cost you more to shut down, right? It's going to cost us less because there's all those days that went by where we didn't do stuff. We didn't do governmenting. That's a word I just made up, governmenting. And I love that. If we're not deep stating or governmenting, we're doing good. This is why I'm in favor of that. Anyway, that's Chuck Schumer. He is a fake, a phony, and a fraud. He says he's doing this. He does the exact opposite. They figured out that the American people would be in favor of this. And in favor of the CR, right? So that if there is a shutdown, it was going to look bad on him. That Trump was going to turn around and say, I worked with Mike Johnson to get this thing straight through the House, and we did it. Now the obstructionists are the Democrats, shutting down your government, and they want to blame that on me. Don't let them. And Trump was going to win that fight. And they knew that. Why they played chicken to begin with, I don't know. Maybe they didn't know that. Maybe they figured it out at the last minute, about an hour and a half or 2 hours ago when all this went down. But I got to tell you, wow, what a bunch of clowns, the Democrats. They could have scored points here and said, look, we're working in a bipartisan manner to make sure that we keep the government running. President Trump is making an effort to do that. We're going to meet him right where he is. We don't agree on everything, but we agree that the American people need their government. They could have touted big government all day. But instead, they made it clear that we should probably consider shutting it down. Okay, no, don't think of that too much. We don't want you thinking what it's like, when the government shut down every Saturday and every Sunday, right? The great one, Mark Levin, always points that out. Every holiday, every weekend, the government's shut down, and we go about our lives just fine. Matter of fact, I tend to like the weekends a little bit more. So I think Schumer, this was a big miscalculation. These guys really blew it. They really blew it. For them. Where they go, I don't know. I don't know who's going to believe them, who's going to trust them, who's going to have any credence in what they say. It's over. In my opinion, it's over. Chuck Schumer, his whatever gravitas he had, which always escaped me as to why, but whatever gravitas he has with the base, the Democrat base, has begun, I should say, to dissipate, if there's any left at all. I can't see anybody looking at Schumer going, man, there is a man of principle. There is a leader. This is the guy that we need to lead this party. Now, is he a good politician? He's good at whipping votes and doing what he does and spinning things, and that's why he's leader. But I think politicians see that. Politicians see the value in having a political strongman like Schumer in leadership. But I think the people, not so much. Not so much. And I don't mean the people that elect him. I'm talking about overall everybody that's watching him and watch that clip today that I just played for you. Crazy. Anyway, so we got that. Lots of border stuff to talk about. Man, lots and lots and lots of stuff. The Department of Justice has opened a probe into who is at the Roosevelt Hotel and the Row and the rest of these hotels in New York City. And, I brought that up a couple of weeks ago saying, it's interesting. Now, I'm going to make another wild prediction here. The wild prediction is this. By publicizing that we're looking into seeing who is staying at these facilities, days after they just announced, oh, by the way, you can self-deport and maybe come back in the future if you use the same app that got you here, CBP One. It's now known as CBP Home. And guess what? We're going to be looking into who's staying in these migrant shelters and in these hotels in New York City, et cetera, et cetera. Well, guess who just got an incentive to deport themselves? Absolutely brilliant. Now, you might recall early on I said it's going to be a yeoman's task to try and get these people out of there. You have to coax them out of there this way. Sending in SWAT teams and whatnot was always going to be difficult. These guys were very, very, obstacular is the word I'll use, to law enforcement. NYPD would go in there to settle the score on something if there was an assault or something, and they were outnumbered every single time. And I thought to myself, this is going to be a tough group of people to evict, a tough group of people to deport, and they have been, right? That's why they're not going after them. They're going after the extreme criminals, right? They call the worst first. Now that they've gotten rid of the worst, now they're going to go ahead and take this next step and go after everybody else that's, here and hasn't done anything, like find meaningful employment or anything like that. And my guess, many of them are going to self-deport because the free ride is over. So we're going to talk about that as well. Plus, I want to get into a couple other things. Vladimir Putinsky, he was in the White House today, which was very interesting. So we're going to have a couple of really good conversations. I'm looking forward to speaking with the senior advisor for Customs and Border Protection, Ron Vitiello, former chief of the Border Patrol. He's scheduled to be with us. I'm looking forward to also speaking with the chief White House correspondent for the Washington Times. She's also scheduled to be with us. And, of course, your calls, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
On the southern border, you've got DHS and ICE who are reporting that there was a little bit of fudging of numbers during the Biden administration on both the catch and the release side with respect to reporting the number of illegals coming into the
They
country.
cheated on the numbers. The numbers were. I love that question. Who are you with?
Just the news, Amanda Henry.
Very nice. That's good.
Do you know how many of those are criminal illegal aliens? And if Biden's out of office, Alejandro Mayorkas, who could
No,
tell
Biden fudged the numbers. The numbers were totally fake. And he gave fake numbers. I knew they were fake. Everybody knew they were fake, but now it came out. And terrible what they did. That administration was a horror show for this country.
Can you hold anyone accountable?
Well, I don't know. They gave phony numbers. And phony numbers are a very bad thing to give, but I'm not sure about that. I don't know how it would play. We want to get it straightened out. We're after many, many bad people that were let into our country, and Kristi Noem and my friend Homan. How good is Tom Homan doing, right? And they're after him, and you see they're taking him out in record numbers. Gang members, gang leaders, drug dealers. There's a problem the Netherlands does not have.
So you've got the Biden administration fudging the numbers per President Trump in a question and answer with Amanda Head from Just the News on Real America's Voice as well. And I want to get some response to this from somebody who spent the better part of 4 decades serving this country at the border in Washington and left to retire and came back to serve President Trump as a senior advisor in the CBP. And he's back with us, former chief Ron Vitiello. Ron, welcome.
Thanks so much, Rich. It's great to be on America at Night with you.
Thank you, brother. Always a pleasure to have you. And I want to get to the bottom of this because, I mean, yes, I think the president nailed the response to that question, saying we always knew the numbers were fake and phony and fraud. And I think that's true. A lot of people were very concerned with the veracity of these numbers. But as they're coming in, what can you tell us?
Well, the president knows leadership matters, right? We now have a leader in the Oval Office that cares about the American people and doesn't lie to them. You know, before Trump, we had a fake presidency, a fake border czar, fake solutions on the border. They were faking the parole system. They were allowing people to abuse the fake asylum system that's supposed to be, part of our border integrity and border security. And now we have real leadership in Todd Lyons at ICE. Kristi Noem as the Secretary of Homeland Security, Tom Homan serving directly at the White House with Donald Trump in the Oval Office. And so the nonsense and the fakery have been turned into real conservative policies at the border that give the men and women of the front line the tools that they need to protect all of us. And it's very refreshing. I'm honored to be back in government serving the Trump administration because I know that they have a passion for the American people, most of all, and the front line that helps protect them every day.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, there seems to be a lot of pushback. You're not getting a lot of support from the states. Tom Homan yesterday in New York trying to get some support from the New York legislature, from the governor of New York, met with assemblymen, getting up in his face and handling it like a gentleman. I handled it better than I would have. But any progress on that?
Well, there are a lot of states and sheriff's offices throughout the U.S. That have signed up in record numbers under the ICE program, under the legal program called 287G. What that is it allows ICE to train frontline deputy sheriffs to help ICE identify people who are in the country illegally and refer them for removal and deportation. And so the support from that part of the country has been outstanding. But you still have, we saw last week in Congress, the mayors of Chicago and Boston and a couple of other places insisting that they would rather protect illegal aliens who are criminals than their own citizens. So there's still a lot to do on that side. And I'm hopeful that the Justice Department with Pam Bondi will take the issue of sanctuary cities and that destructive policy on in a legal way that helps the men and women of ICE do their job in a more safe and secure way, but ends the nonsense that protects criminals over Americans.
Now, Chief, I want to ask you about this this report I saw earlier today that the president's about to invoke the 18th century law to make a massive move against illegal immigration, and it's the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. How does that differ from what you just described, and is there accuracy to this? How does this help us in our quest to secure the country?
Well, what I'm certain about is that it was talked about on the campaign. The president referenced it many times.
Sure.
About how it was going to be one of the tools that we were going to use to help secure the border. And so on top of all of the ends to the asylum abuse, the end of fake paroles, a consequence at the border to being put on the path for removal and or criminally prosecuted, the Alien Enemies Act could be another tool. And I will tell you, the difference between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0 is that we have the same goal in the sense of giving operational control to the front line at the border and ending the nonsense. But it's not just the one thing, right? We're doing all of the things, right? They're going after criminals in the interior. We've got support from the State Department so that countries are taking back their citizens in a way that I've never seen before, frankly. Help from the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, et cetera. And then Aliens Enemies Act will be another layer on top of all the goodness that is going on now, an additional tool, additional arrow in the quiver, if you will, of the front line.
Now, Chief Ron Vitiello, I really want to get, and current senior advisor to CBP, I want to get your, I guess, a follow-up here, because you said, unlike you've ever seen, and you've spent 4 decades doing this. I think that's a pretty profound statement that you've done this as long as you have under multiple administrations in different regions of the country, and you're seeing a level of cooperation that you've never seen before. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. It's even better than the first go-round. The seamless relationship that exists between the Department of Homeland Security under the leadership of Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, the seamless interaction both at the line level where it matters to the front line, but also here in Washington, us in the State Department. We need to have ICE needs travel documents to send people back home. And I will tell you, when a country like Colombia, back in the day, not now, but back in the day, when a country like Colombia would say, well, we're not taking that flight, or we're not taking those people, we're not issuing travel documents to receive our own people anymore. There would be a meeting with the minister. We would make phone calls. We would send a demarche. We would send a letter. And people would talk about it, and we'd meet again next week, and things would just kind of lumber along. The bureaucracy would sometimes kill these ideas. Not anymore. Now we call somebody in the State Department, and they say, what's your problem? We tell them what the problem is, and they call us right back. And you saw what the president did to the president of Colombia. He not only got them to take his own citizens back, but he sent his own plane to do it.
The equivalent of Air Force One. Place. That's fantastic. Chief, hang it with me. I got to take a pause right here, but we're coming right back with Ron Vitiello, former Border Patrol Chief and Senior Advisor to Customs and Border Patrol, serving in the administration right now. And we're going to continue our conversation as the U.S. population growth has been growing, but mainly because of immigration. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Releasing a public safety threat back in the public is just stupid. Just common sense.
Border czar Tom Homan took his campaign to end New York City's sanctuary city laws to the state capitol, where Republican lawmakers roundly applauded his hardline stance.
You're not going to stop us. New York State, you got to change the sanctuary status.
He slammed Governor Hochul and praised Mayor Adams, whose desire to work with federal agents to identify immigrants who commit crimes has subjected him to charges he's doing it to get his criminal case dropped.
Your governor stands on national TV. I think criminal aliens should be deported. What's one of the first things she do? She goes down to New York City and tries to fire the mayor who wants to help me find public safety threats.
Republican lawmakers like Staten Island Senator Andy Lanza added fuel to the fire by attacking New York City's asylum seeker policies.
This government, together with some Bolshevik non-for-profit Home for the Homeless, kicked seniors and veterans out of their homes so that they could put people who are here illegally in that building.
The Republican press conference was apparently too much for Queens Assemblyman Zoran Mamdani, who had to be held back by state police.
Do you believe in the First Amendment? Do you believe in the First Amendment, Tom Homan?
Democratic lawmakers then staged their own counter press conference.
We are not going to allow New York State to be complicit in the deportation dragnet and the fascist regime that the Trump administration wants to hoist upon us because they don't like people who don't look like them, who don't speak the language like them, or who they believe are the root cause of all the problems and ills in this world.
Wow, that was a bunch to take in. Amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company live till midnight, 1 a.m. in some areas of the country. Of course, our phone number, if you want to call in, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to get some reaction to that from our guests. We continue our conversation with former Chief of Border Patrol, Ron Vitiello. He's now Senior Advisor to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Chief, tell us a little bit about this ongoing battle that Tom Homan and I guess other of your colleagues and yourself included are facing with the policy end of things, where you have state partners that aren't being partners at all.
Yeah, well, it's great to be back with you, Rich. Tom Homan is an American patriot. He served this country like I did for many, many years, starting on the front line, working his way up into the halls of Washington. And so what he has taken on in this press conference in New York is the destructive policies that the state of New York has, a lot of the cities in New York, including New York City, have, which doesn't allow local authorities to refer people who are in the country illegally after they've committed a crime in their jurisdiction. So a police officer, a police department, a sheriff's deputy, or a sheriff's office arrests somebody, takes their freedom away, and puts them in jail. But then they won't make a phone call to the men and women of ICE to have them deported when they know full well they're in the country illegally. That's a destructive policy. It ruins public safety in the communities in which it is activated. And the state of New York has, those Democratic representatives in the state of New York care more about criminals than they do about their own constituents, because if they cared about their constituents, they would take the violent criminals off the streets, and they would help the federal government do their job to control immigration and give us a safe border and secure streets in America.
There's a terrorist sympathizer sympathizing with the Hamas terrorist group, Mahmoud Khalil, and he was arrested, and the left within the media and the Democrat Party and their acolytes are all out there up in arms, outraged that this man was arrested for sharing his truth about Hamas. And it's being, in my opinion, misreported because, from what I understand, this person committed an actual crime, right? He was actually supporting a terrorist activity in the United States, which I don't think I could do or you could do or anybody else could do, right? Irrespective of being here on a student visa. So when he's taken into custody, all of a sudden it's a big deal. Tell us what's going on there.
Well, he's obviously a supporter of Hamas. He's anti-Zionist, anti-Israel. And so he's come to the country as a student, purportedly, but has spent most of his young adult life activating on behalf of groups like Hamas and Hezbollah and anti-Israeli, anti-Zionist, anti-Jewish causes. And that's support to a terrorist organization. The U.S. government says that Hamas is a terrorist organization. That's not a right-wing talking point. That is the official position of the United States government. If you go out and raise money for Hamas, or you prepare and put out flyers on behalf of Hamas, you're giving them support. And that is against the law. And the left has succeeded in telling themselves and trying to tell Americans that crossing the border or being in the country illegally is not a crime. Now they want us to believe that supporting terrorists in the United States is supposed to be given to a privilege of somebody who we have invited here on a student visa and now is a lawful permanent residence. That's not how the law works, and that's not how immigration works. Immigration laws are designed to preserve America's culture, to preserve Americans' way of life, and immigration should benefit Americans, not the individuals who are immigrating. Now, we all know that people aspire to come to America and they can live their dreams here, but the immigration system is designed to protect us and to benefit the country, not allow every other criminal and people who are supporting terrorism to live free in our country. That's not how the law works. And so I, for one, am glad that ICE found this guy and put him in removal proceedings to lift his green card and sent him back. If he loves Hamas so much, he can live in that part of the world where he has to look over his shoulder each and every day because he doesn't have the fundamental rights that we have in this country that he's abusing, frankly, in this activism. And it's not just activism, right? It's just material support. This is him saying that Hamas is better than our best ally in the Middle East, Israel.
And I want to be clear because I know a lot of people listening. The left is making the argument that if he says he doesn't like Israel or he doesn't support, Zionism or whatever, none of that is a crime. The actual crime is this material support that he's providing for Hamas, which is labeled as a terrorist organization, and then organizing the violence on these college campuses, which I feel like is getting lost in the media, where we're supposed to accept that in the name of free speech. That's not free speech, is it?
It's not. It's not. And we know that, maybe not exactly in this case, but we know in many cases, these demonstrations on these college campuses, this guy's 30 years old. What's he doing on a college campus anyway? He's being provided support by someone, and that is not organic, right? He didn't wake up one morning and say, you know what, I'm going to go march for Hamas. I'm going to produce flyers. There's a funding stream from other countries in the world, from non-state and state actors who are promoting this division in our own country. And frankly, we don't have to put up with it. He has a privileged status as a lawful permanent resident, and he's lost that privilege because he broke the rules on which he was allowed to enter this country and was invited in. And so the party's over. The nonsense is over. Just like it is on the border, the nonsense is gone. It's now time to get back to a rule of law. Now it's time to get back to an immigration system that has integrity, and that starts with holding people to account for their bad behavior.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Chief, I just want to run this headline by you. It's from NBC4 New York. Immigration accounted for all U.S. population growth in 2022 and 2023 for the first time since 1850. So our country grew not because we had kids, right? It grew by 1.6 million people. Birth rates went down, but the shares of foreign-born went up, and it's the highest it's been since 1850. I think that's remarkable, and not in a good way.
It bears watching, right? Many of us have an immigration story in our background. My mom was not born in this country. I was lucky enough to be first generation on her side. My dad's parents were from Italy. He was first generation on that side of the family. And so America is a place where immigrants have found dreams and lived out their aspirations in life. But immigration is supposed to serve Americans. And this last 4 years under the Biden presidency and the fake border czar, Kamala Harris, we suffered on the government-owned records, 11 million illegal aliens attempted to enter the United States and were apprehended by the Border Patrol. On top of that, you have this got-away number that, where thousands of people a day came in and no one ever saw them in the law enforcement context. So upwards, something north of 50 million people came into the country in the last 4 years. They were not invited. They did not have permission. They were not inspected. So we don't know who they are. Many of them from Russia, China, other places where people don't like us and want to take over, the superpower status in the world. And so we're at great risk, continue to be at risk because of the millions of people who have come. And this Tren de Aragua is the crystallizing example, a gang from a violent, vicious gang from the third world who now wreaks havoc in almost every big city in the United States. Some of the worst crime that we see in places like Denver, Houston, Chicago, and LA are at the hands of this gang that just got here in 2023. And so there's a lot to do on the immigration side and on the enforcement side. But bottom line to your question, immigration is supposed to serve the country. And under the Biden regime, the immigration was serving all the special interests and the crooks and criminals and these tin pot dictators that were sending the worst of the worst into the United States for obvious reasons.
Well, Chief, I want to, wish you Godspeed in all of the work that is yet to be done, and B, just say, based on where your parents came from, it sounds like you must have had some great cooking at family dinners.
Yeah, we know good food in the Vitiello household, no doubt about it.
Thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate it. Again, Godspeed to you and the team with all the work you're doing. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and we appreciate you visiting us tonight.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You bet. Amigos, we continue straight ahead. Your thoughts, your calls, and more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Putin just said he is open to a ceasefire, but he does still have some concerns. He suggested that you two should speak directly. Do you have plans to speak to him soon? If so, when are you confident you can get this across the table?
Sure. He did say that today. It was a very promising statement because other people are saying different things, and you don't know if they have anything to really, if they have any meaning, or I don't know. I think some of them were making statements. I don't think they have anything to do with it. No, he put out a very promising statement, but it wasn't complete. And yeah, I'd love to meet with him or talk to him. But we have to get it over with fast. Every day people are being killed. It's not like, as we sit here, 2 people will be killed. Think of it. 2 people are going to be killed during this little period of time. Thousands of people a week are dying. So we really don't have very much time. We have to make this fast. It shouldn't be very complicated.
President Trump reacting to a statement made via translator today from President Putin of Russia. Putinsky, as I like to call him. And President Putin basically saying that we agree with the ceasefire, but it must remove initial reasons for crisis. Reading a little transcript here. They also agree that the proposal for the ceasefire is based on the assumption that the ceasefire would lead to a long-term peace deal, something that would remove initial reasons for the crisis. They also alluded to the fact they don't feel that Ukraine is ready to make a deal, that they're doing so under pressure from the U.S. I say, what does that matter to you? Right? My dad would say, ¿Y a ti qué te importa? What does that matter to you? If they're at the table, they're at the table. Who cares who's twisting whose arm? They got to keep the deal. So anyway, it sounds to me like they want to say, oh, we're incredibly committed, but they're not really committed. And we'll see where it goes. I would suspect that both of them are looking to make a deal, and more so Russia than Ukraine. I think Russia has to save face somehow. This is a great off-ramp for them. Ukraine is like, you know what, we've lost so much. Let's keep going. As long as we can keep getting some money, let's keep going. So I get it. They don't want to lose face either. Everybody's in the face-saving game here. So we'll see how that goes. My thinking is, these guys both want out, and if Trump is effective here, and I think he will be, everybody's going to make more money. That's ultimately the answer. And it's always been the answer. It's not a Trump thing. That is a diplomacy thing, right? For diplomacy to work, they've always said, how about foreign aid? There's always been some sort of deal where you make some money. The difference with Trump is that he doesn't want to give money away. He says, hey, let's make a deal where we both make money. But he's not bribing people. And that's why I love his foreign policy. I really do. Because in the past, it was always, well, let's see what we could do to sweeten the deal. Let's see if we can get you USAID to help you build, well water for villagers in your most rural regions and whatever. Some story, where ultimately has nothing to do with anything other than them getting a little cash grab to sweeten the deal. So we'll see how this continues to play out. I'll bring you, whatever I've got on it as it develops. And again, Chuck Schumer has capitulated. I don't want that to go unnoticed. Chuck Schumer saying, all right, you win, El Trompito. He didn't say that, but that's in effect what he was saying. That's in effect what he did. He has given up, right? Thrown in the towel, said, all right, the Trump CR and the Republicans in the House will have their way, and we're going to go along with it. So big win, big victory for El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. And let me see. Do we have time? Yeah. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Paul. Paul's calling us from Boise, Idaho. KBOI, go right ahead, sir.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich. Yeah, something that was on my mind all day, even though I had really heavy meetings with some doctors and such. The thing that was centered most on my mind was DACA. It's been an albatross now for, 4 different administrations. And I think Trump could make a move offering them, if they do at least 2 years service in the military of their choice, U.S. American military, just like the IDF, do 2 years. That would be a huge step towards citizenship. I think it would give an incentive to want to do that and to become an American citizen. He's got a huge burden on his shoulders, our president does. He's the number one patriot that we've got in this country, and we've got to realize that. He's doing the best he can for all of us concerned, not just one of us or the billionaires, as the people call them. That's not true. It's just not true. Those billionaires put money into their business so that we can have jobs. They're not sitting on stacks of $100 bills. And it infuriates me the way they treat that man. He's given his heart and soul, and he almost gave his life up in the process of doing this.
Well, Paul, good point. You raised a good point here. Several. But the first one, there is a bill that Senator Dick Durbin, Democrat senator, Democrats put forward several bills on this to help DACA recipients enter the military, and they weren't successful every single time. One of them was the Fight for the American Dream Act, which was basically hoping that DACA recipients would join the military and create a pathway to grant them permanent residence after they served honorably. And I got to tell you, I've met people who are DACA, because remember, these are people that were, they know no other country but the United States. And they're all looking for an opportunity to stay here. None of them want to go anywhere because they call America home. So it is an interesting conversation, and we'll see how it unfolds if Republicans become open to this idea. I know President Trump was always open to it, but there wasn't a lot of Republican support for it. So we'll see. Anyway, we're going to take a pause right here. Coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And again, depending on the time zone that you're in, you might be hearing stuff a little bit later or a little bit sooner, but we have an excellent conversation coming up with Kerry Pickett. And if this is the end of the road for you, take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of our program. It's about 7 minutes past 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We're live and national right out of the New York area, and welcome to the program. Give me a call, 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. If you want to sound off on what's going on in America at night, this is your opportunity to do so. And big news today, Chuck Schumer, all eyes were on Chuck Schumer because he said, we will block this. We're going to block this thing. No one's going to vote for it. We will make sure the CR doesn't pass. We'll shut down the government. And I said, I don't think he's going to do it. I suspect that he's going to try and negotiate for something, but he's going to sign it and he's going to be on board with Trump. And I was right. And not because I have infinite wisdom, just because you could kind of tell, right? What would be the win be for him in shutting down the government? I don't think it would be a win at all. It would be a win for me, right? Because I'm the one dying to shut down the government. So I think Chuck Schumer figured that out, that conservatives would be happy with this move, and he didn't want to do that. And that's why he said this would be a very big win for Trump. So not the best Schumer, but you get the gist. So that's going on there. No shutdown. El Trumpito wins. Then you've got President Trump again, this time with Secretary General Mark Rutte. Or is it Rudy? I don't know. R-U-T-T-E. Forgive me for the ignorance in pronunciation there. But they're having a discussion in the Oval Office today regarding NATO following the discussion on the call where Vladimir Putin says, I am interested in a ceasefire. I'm just not sure Ukraine is. Listen to Trump with Secretary General Mark Rutte.
Well, we'd like to see a ceasefire from Russia. And we have, not been working in the dark. We've been discussing with Ukraine land and pieces of land that would be kept and lost and all of the other elements of a final agreement. There's a power plant involved, a very big power plant involved. Who's going to get the power plant and who's going to get this and that? And so, it's not an easy process. But phase one is the ceasefire. A lot of the individual subjects have been discussed, though. We've been discussing concepts of land because you don't want to waste time with the ceasefire if it's not going to mean anything. So we're saying, look, this is what you can get. This is what you can't get. They discussed NATO and being in NATO, and everybody knows what the answer to that is. They've known that answer for 40 years, in all fairness. A lot of the details of a final agreement have actually been discussed. Now we're going to see whether or not Russia's there, and if they're not, it'll be a very disappointing moment for the world.
President Trump speaking like a real president. And I don't say that as if he's a fake president. I say that because so much criticism has been on him for not being presidential enough and not being diplomatic enough. And you tell me, if the previous president, Joe El Baboso Biden, could have pulled off something like this. I thought he could have if he tried, but apparently he never tried because he didn't want to. And that speaks volumes about him. Plus, there's some controversy out there. I don't know how much of a controversy it is, but they're saying that they're using an automatic signing machine to put the signature on the pardons that Biden signed, the pardons for his family, the ones that he issued at the last minute. And I don't know how accurate this is or not, and if they're going to be able to challenge those. I would imagine, right? My supposition would be they say, hey, Biden, did you want to pardon these people? And he says, yeah, sure. And then they go, all right, then it's as legit can be. That's my thinking. But maybe there's more to it. Maybe we'll find out more about that. But again, my guess, my gut, just trying to get people excited into thinking, they didn't pardon everybody and we're going to be able to get them. I really don't believe it. Not at all. But there's nothing wrong with selling some hope, even if it's false. So we'll see if I have to eat those words. My gut tells me I probably won't. So that's Trump. Secretary Mark Rutte discussing Putin and Zelensky and the ongoing war. We also have a bunch of other things that are going on. Let me see. There was a flashback that I wanted to play for you. I'll leave it for a little bit later, but it's basically Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders, Nancy Pelosi, and they're all talking about protecting the government from waste, fraud, and abuse. And isn't it interesting how today they're kind of proponents for waste, fraud, and abuse? It's just you can't make this stuff up. You also have them, calling for the support of keeping the government open. Yet yesterday, Chuck Schumer was singing a different song, saying we need to shut down the government. So I just think that is very rich indeed. And let me see if there's another one that I wanted to go over here. Oh, good old Representative Jasmine Crockett. She says if we shut down the government, employees can't be fired. Listen to this one, number 7. Go right ahead.
In my opinion, if we're shut down, you can't be fired. And what does that mean? It does mean that people will not be paid, but it does mean that they will get their back pay. So hopefully we can stop some of the bleeding. We just saw that the Department of Education laid off 50% of their workforce. So I don't really understand why anybody would say, oh, we got to take the high road. Listen, he is decimating the federal government. And you're talking about whether or not we're going to keep the doors open. He literally is shutting down departments anyway.
I got to tell you, maybe she doesn't know it, but Donald Trump campaigned on a lot of this. And when you outright say he is decimating the federal government, like Chris Matthews, that sends a chill right down the side of my leg there. And to steal a line from him, this is every conservative's dream. We're living in our utopia. A smaller federal government, a smaller central government is a fantastic idea. Thank you, Jasmine Crockett. She never disappoints, right? Always one of the best clips of the night is Jasmine Crockett. And I wish she would come on our radio show. I would love to interview her. But we'll interview some other people because my gut tells me she's not interested in coming on this radio show. And if you love radio like I do, if you love podcasts and listening to the news, you got to get the C. Crane CC Radio 3. Why? Because it delivers exceptional spoken word audio. The clarity makes it feel like me, your favorite host, is right in the room with you. And the CC Radio 3 pulls in long-range AM and FM stations, incredibly clear, and it includes this emergency feature, like several of them. Number 1, the NOAA weather band, and a 2-meter ham band. Come on, what other radio has that? It also runs on a power cord that comes included with it, or a set of batteries that lasts over 170 hours. So what do you got to do? I think you got to realize that the CC Radio 3 is the almost everything radio. You need one of these. Everybody should have at least one of these. I have, no lie, at 3. Now, I want you to listen to your favorite podcasts, your favorite shows, whatever music you like. You could use it with Bluetooth from any smartphone or any smart speaker. Here's what you're going to do to order one. You're going to ask for the CC Radio 3. That's the model. Call C. Crane. That's the company. They have a U.S.-based customer service office. Here's the phone number. Write it down. 800-522-8863. 800-522-8863. Or just go to their website. It's the best way. Visit ccrane.com/rich. That's my name. I'll spell it for you. ccrane.com/RICH. And when you use code RICH at checkout for orders that are over $75, you're going to save 10% on every order. So do that now. Promo code RICH.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I believe it is my job to make the best choice for the country, to minimize the harms to the American people. Therefore, I will vote to keep the government open and not shut it down. There is nobody in the world, nobody, who wants to shut the government down more than Donald Trump and more than Elon Musk. We should not give it to them. And make no mistake, Democrats will continue to fight what Donald Trump is doing. Everything that Trump, Musk, and Republicans have done so far has a clear goal. Again, cutting taxes for billionaires, eviscerate Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. This is the fight that matters most, and the fight we must focus on.
That's Senator Chuck Schumer, after spending all day yesterday saying, we're shutting it down, I'm not voting for that thing, stomping his feet, pouting his lips, crossing his arms. His tantrum is over. He voted for the CR. The government will not be shut down. Isn't it great to see Trump win? So I want to talk about this. I want to talk about what actually happened behind the scenes. What got Schumer to change his tune? Now, I know that yesterday my comments were he was always going to change his tune. He never had any intention of really voting against this. He was just trying to hold out for something else. At least that was my belief, my handicap here. But I want to get the scoop from somebody who spent a very long time as a congressional reporter in D.C., and she's now White House correspondent at the Washington Times. Kerry Pickett, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Rich. It's great to talk to you again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Now, Kerry Pickett, you always have some of the best reporting out there. You're a real shoe leather reporter, an OG in the game. This is not your first rodeo. You've been in Washington. You know the players, and you've seen this type of bluster coming from these same characters. It wasn't that long ago that they were saying things like, we can't shut down the government. But here we are with Schumer saying, well, I had to vote for this thing after he just said so yesterday. So what was the behind the scenes here? Give us the scoop.
Sure. Very often, I do see lots of new reporters who get very excited about whether or not the government's going to shut down. Can we possibly see a government shutdown? And look, I've seen government shutdowns happen before, whether it's for a few days, whether it's for a few weeks, and it often becomes very anticlimactic. You'll see a number of government workers who end up getting furloughed. When Barack Obama was in office, he looked to blame the Republicans during that period of time. And there were news packages showing certain parks shut down, certain monuments that were shut down, and then he would point the finger at the Republicans. In this case, I don't think that the Democrats were expecting the House Republicans to come together so quickly behind this particular stopgap funding resolution so quickly. And they were hoping that the Republicans, particularly the more conservative ones, to be constantly sniping at each other. And in this case, they came together earlier than they imagined, and they were able to pass their portion of it, or rather, their version of it, and handed it over to the Senate in time. And the Republicans over in the upper chamber, they said, "Hey, good to go." and so when
just like that,
and it kind of put the Democrats in a bit of a bind, because they were always the ones pointing the finger over at the Republicans, saying, "You guys can't seem to get it together." And in this case, it was the Democrats who really couldn't put it together. And it was sort of in the background this entire time. What has Donald Trump and Doge been doing? Well, they have been doing all these cuts all over the federal government, and it puts these Democrats in a bind, saying, well, gee, if we end up blocking this particular continuing resolution, this stopgap funding measure, then we will essentially be saying, okay, well, all these government employees, all these non-essential government employees could actually be deemed non-essential, and then it could give Donald Trump and Elon Musk more ideas, saying, well, since you're not essential, maybe then perhaps we can make you not essential permanently. So it could, possibly just give them some more ideas going into the future. So that put them in a real bind. And it's my understanding that you had Kirsten Gillibrand, who was just yelling at the Democrats, saying, look, you guys, this isn't a very good look, because all these years you were always pointing fingers at Republicans, blaming them for government shutdowns, and now here we are today.
Doing the same exact thing. Folks, we're on with Kerry Pickett, White House correspondent for Washington Times. And Kerry Pickett, I think your analysis is spot on. I agree with you a lot there. I think that it's exactly what happened. And I still think this backfired on them spectacularly. And it would have been even worse had they gone with the shutdown. So they're saving face in many ways. But ultimately, this was the path of least resistance for Schumer and the Democrats. Now, what I'm interested in seeing is, do you think, it seems to me that it's going to be very difficult for Democrats to position themselves as the party trying to get things done. I think Trump's already nailed that with Republicans. And I think they can't paint themselves as anything other than obstructionists, because that seems to be all they've been doing. But is that just my bias?
Oh, no, not at all, because the Democrats, they are trying to figure out how they position themselves as the opposition party. Look, just like any party that's out of power, is it that they are supposed to do like anything that Trump does? Is it that they're going to do the opposite? Which is, by the way, the same strategy that Biden did when he came into office. If you recall, it was like every single executive order that Trump did is like he's going to reverse, even if it was a good idea, by the way. And so they're doing, well, you know what, we're going to do the same thing. Even if it's a good idea, they're going to oppose it. But then they end up looking stupid when it ends up being something that ends up, like we just saw, backfiring into their face. It's like looking at like a Looney Tunes thing. It's like like you have Yosemite Sam with like his
who puts the finger in the barrel of the gun, right?
Yeah, exactly. So and there they are. So therein lies their problem, is that when Trump first came into office in 2016, the Democrats had the advantage, because here you have someone who has never dealt with Washington seriously. He's bringing in people into his inner circle who have never dealt with Washington, and they were constantly pulling the rug out from under him, and he's trying to reach out to them, and they were constantly really messing with him.
Yeah,
and that's how
it's funny. They kept him on his heels, and he tried to keep up. But I think he's figured all that out, and now he's got them on the run, which is interesting. Folks, we're coming right back with Kerry Pickett, White House correspondent for the Washington Times, and she's got an amazing piece in the WashingtonTimes.com. Make sure you check it out on what ActBlue has been up to. You don't want to miss that, the attacks on Elon Musk and all of that, straight ahead with me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
There is more news in your commentary, in your analysis, than there is on the news network.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Several protests have been erupting across the U.S. They're all focusing against President Donald Trump's policy changes and Elon Musk's Doge, which has helped defund several government programs. Now, in Delray Beach, dozens gathered outside a Tesla dealership to voice their opposition against billionaire Elon Musk. The protest is part of a bigger Tesla takedown movement, encouraging shareholders to dump their stock and join the picket lines. The protest follows dozens of others from across our state, including in Tallahassee. Dozens gathered outside the state capitol, showing their anger for President Trump's defunding of several scientific programs. Elon Musk responding on his social media site X, placing the blame on the Democratic organization ActBlue as responsible for the protests. He blames other organizations within ActBlue, like Seattle organization Troublemakers and the Disruption Project.
That right there is a report on what's going on with Elon Musk from a Florida TV station. Count, give me the call letters again. CBS 12, West Palm Beach. Thank you. It went blank on my screen. And this is interesting because our guest, Kerry Pickett, and we're coming right back to her, she's written about this as well. And she's going to give us the scoop. Kerry Pickett is a White House correspondent at the Washington Times. She knows Capitol Hill like no other, in my opinion. Kerry Pickett, tell us what's going on here.
Well, look, you are having all of these attacks, particularly over at these Tesla dealerships, these Tesla charging stations, anything that is associated with Elon Musk. There are attacks, and look, I'm not surprised that it's happening. In fact, I'm actually shocked that it hasn't happened sooner. Okay, right. And I'm wondering when we're going to start seeing more attacks happening at other areas that are associated with Elon Musk, and whether or not there's going to be protections starting to move up, especially around the SpaceX area, because he has government contracts, and that is something that Donald Trump is going to have to start thinking about as well. So that is something that I'm sure that is in the back of his mind.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And again, one that I'm sure they're probably angling for. I'm pretty certain that Elon Musk already has some sort of security with, having his own NASA that he owns. But on top of that, it's interesting that that'll be the next thing that they complain about, saying, "Oh, you're stealing our Social Security, you're doing this, and now you're going to get a security detail." And it wouldn't be. I don't think it would be out of the realm of reason if the guy's under threat and he's doing all this work on behalf of the White House. It makes sense to me. But I could see the Democrats saying, and now he's got this. Now he's the real pseudo, the real shadow president. Do you think that stuff is going anywhere? Based on your reporting and the people you're talking to, is that line of argument working?
No, it isn't. Because look, Elon Musk, he was the one who helped launch PayPal, okay? Mm-hmm. And he had access to a lot of people's information already, okay? And you're talking about the richest man in the world. If he really wanted to get into people's accounts and somehow even make himself richer just by getting into everyone else's accounts, which is silly if you think about it. Okay, it's like just to get into average people's bank accounts. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to make a little extra pocket change.
Right, Elon Musk is going to rob me to get richer.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, let's go into Rich Valdez's bank account and Kerry Pickett's bank account, just so I can make some measly, pocket change here. I mean, he already had people's information. That's just silly. And so now they're saying, oh, well, he's going to have access to your information. He already had access to people's information. So that argument, I don't think, is really flying with people.
Me either. Now, I want to get back into this ActBlue thing because, there was the letter sent by Congressman Biggs to Director Kash Patel of the FBI talking about this that kind of started this inquiry, or at least added to it. Walk us through a little bit of the timeline that you lay out in your article.
Right. So you have Congressman Andy Biggs. He's a member of the House Judiciary Committee. He sent a letter to FBI Director Kash Patel saying that the online political donation platform that is the main fundraising apparatus for the Democrats known as ActBlue. It's raised over $16 billion for the Democrats since 2004, and it's been used, according to investigations by the House Republicans, to skirt the integrity, quote unquote, of federal campaign finance laws. And this has been, and this investigation has been done not just by the House Administration Committee, but also by the House Oversight Committee. Now, interestingly enough, what's been done is that the reporting by my colleague, Susan Ferriccio, the platform had routinely accepted some credit card donations without requiring a 3-digit security code known as a card like verification value, the CVV, you know, that like 3-digit number that you often have to put into
it's on the back of the credit card.
Back of the credit card, and that is something that they weren't requiring for a very long time, and very often it had only very recently implemented policies to automatically reject high-risk gift card donations, including those from foreigners. That was only recently. Okay, so basically there are questions, very important questions, as to whether or not ActBlue was accepting these high-risk gift card donations from foreign donors from all over the world for the past 20 years. And we're talking about billions and billions of dollars that they have been fundraising for all types of candidates, all types of liberal causes. And now what we have is a request by Republican lawmakers to have the FBI get involved.
Yeah, and I find this to be very interesting because I remember it wasn't that long ago that there was a lot of questions about where some of the ActBlue money was coming from, and there was some thoughts that it was coming from overseas during the Kamala Harris campaign, in particular parts of Ukraine. And I just thought, wow, that's interesting. Imagine if Trump was getting a bunch of money from Ukraine through his, WinRed account. All of a sudden, I think there'd be a lot of questions being asked. But this stuff is here today and gone tomorrow. Why is there no scrutiny for the Democrats?
Well, the ActBlue officials ended up defending their security provisions, and they said that they were requiring foreign donations to be accompanied by a U.S. passport number and other verification steps. But, we'll see if that passes the smell test, if the FBI decides to actually, go through, further scrutiny. But House Republicans were leading the probe. They said the lack of security did leave ActBlue open to illegal straw donations from foreigners as a result of these gift cards, for example.
Okay. Now, Kerry Pickett, I want to get your take on this change in your beat, right? You've been a congressional reporter for a very long time. You're now a White House reporter. What's that change been like? And congratulations to you on this new role.
Sure. Yeah, well, I was a congressional reporter for about 16 years. One of the things, some people tend to wonder, how's that different? Why not? When one's a congressional reporter, physically speaking, I'm talking about an environment change, Congress, the actual layout, it the building's huge. You go in there and you can walk around, and it is like you do get lost when you go there. But there are tons and tons and tons of sources that you can talk to, lawmakers and staffers, and you do eventually get used to that place, and you can be by yourself. You can also be with others, but that's a chance that you really get used to the complex, just like any other workplace. Whereas and also over in Congress, you have to go look for news. As I say, you have to go hunt for your food. Whereas at the White House, it is much, much smaller in terms of a complex, and your news is rather as I say, given to you and it's also, it's a smaller amount of people that you're dealing with, and you report out the news that is essentially, given to you, and you have to be a little more creative as far as what you can find there. So it's like anything else. It's actually a microcosm as to how big the different branches are.
Right. So physically,
government.
you're saying, like physically, it's kind of night and day in terms of how you do it. Plus, there's the briefing room. Kerry, I want you to hold that thought if you can. Stick with me. I got to take a quick pause, but we're coming right back with White House correspondent for the Washington Times, Kerry Pickett.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation with you all, the American people, and we wrap up with our good friend Kerry Pickett. She is a White House correspondent now. She used to be congressional reporter at the Washington Times for a long time and with some other great news outlets in D.C., and Kerry Pickett, White House correspondent. We were talking about this new role as White House correspondent and how it's different being in the White House versus being in Congress because of how vastly large it is. But what are some of the other differences in your new role?
Well, I have to say that you're also dealing with different types of people who you're seeing every day. And of course, over on Capitol Hill, you're obviously seeing a lot of lawmakers every day, whereas over at the White House, you're seeing more administration people walking in and out of the White House, whether it's the defense secretary, whether it's different cabinet members who are walking in and out. So you often talk to them through gaggles. So it's just, as far as like different people that you are interacting with, that is a huge difference more than anything else. Also, it's just a subject matter that you are often dealing with, and as far as the stories that you are putting out every single day. So, I would say that is probably the biggest difference more than anything else.
Now, tell me about accessibility. I know that the White House has taken this approach of allowing a lot of new faces and selecting who gets to be a correspondent as opposed to the White House Correspondents Association, which I think is an interesting move. Tell me about that. Do you feel like they're very accessible, the people you're talking about, or do you have a different opinion?
Well, keep in mind, this is my first time being part of the White House Press Corps, so I can't really give you a compare and contrast. But from what I understand, one of the things that the Trump administration has been very different from the previous administration is that they're bringing in different types of reporters. So in this case, they're bringing in like this new media type of reporting, and this is very similar to what they did last time during the first Trump administration. So they have like a new media seat where they will have the first question of each briefing will be asked by a new media reporter, as opposed to when they would have like the Associated Press would often ask the question sometimes, and that's kind of very much angered a lot of the reporters who are longtime reporters within the White House Correspondents Association. As you know, there's a big controversy going on right now with the Trump White House, keeping the AP out of a lot of closed events as a result of the AP's refusal to refer to the now Gulf of America, as opposed to they're still calling it the Gulf of Mexico in the AP style book, and the reasoning by the Trump administration is that, like, look, you guys have a lot of influence in your style book because outlets all over America use your style book, and so if you guys call it the Gulf of Mexico, all these other outlets are going to be calling it the Gulf of Mexico. And the AP's argument is like, look, we have freedom of speech, and you guys shouldn't be dictating to us what we call it, because as far as other places in the world are concerned, it's still the Gulf of Mexico. So you shouldn't be dictating to us what our editorial style is. So it's going back and forth. So
well, there's truth in that. The 12 or 13 years ago, back in 2013, I had a column in the community section of the Washington Times, back when John Solomon was editor there, and we had to use the AP style guide, and there was a lot of rules. And it's a genuine thing. So very, very interesting take. Thank you, Kerry Pickett, for keeping us up to speed on what's going on, and I plan to call on you more as you develop in your new role and have interesting stories that you want to break with us. We're looking forward to it.
Sure thing. Take care.
You bet. Thanks, Kerry. And amigos, we continue with your thoughts, your calls, and so much more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, we're going to get to your calls, open phones across America. And I wanted to go to Michael, who had some comments on President Trump being guided by his pocket when it comes to foreign policy. I haven't even seen the left accusing him of that, so that was interesting. Michael, I hope you grow a set and call back. I'd love to hear it. Anyway, let us continue. Let's go to Tony, Avon Lake, Ohio, WEOL. Go for it very quickly.
Okay. You were speaking about Doge the other night. I tried to call. Anyhow, I didn't get in.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to make your point quickly. We're going to run out of time.
Okay. Well, anyhow, a list of people, their net worth, just a few people, and probably getting kickbacks from all this. Chuck Schumer, $75 million. Elizabeth Warren, $73 million. Ilhan Omar, $83
Now,
to
where is
$90
this
million.
information from?
There's a show that I listen, radio show called What's Right, What's Left. There's a number of shows that I listen to.
All right, well, we would need a source for that because I haven't heard that. But, Tony, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Shout out to Avon Lake, Ohio, WEOL. I see we have calls from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, from Chicago, Illinois, and so much more. Shout outs to KDKA, WLS, and more. We've got more to come straight ahead. The calls keep coming in, and we're going to take them. Don't go anywhere, folks. I am Rich Valdez, and we're coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you this Thursday night. We're live, we're national. It's about 7 minutes after 11 p.m. East Coast time, which is New York area time, and I want to get into a bunch of things tonight. Of course, your calls and more open phones across America. We've got a few people on hold, and we're going to get to you momentarily. But I wanted you to be up to speed with what's going on. Of course, Chuck Schumer talking a lot of yin-yang, talking a lot of smack. He was going to shut down the government. He was going to vote no on the continuing resolution. He was going to be a thorn in Trump's side. Well, nope. He fell right in line. He went ahead and voted for the bill. Of course, President Trump was also having some conversation on a bunch of things today, but I want to refresh everyone's memory. I want to take it back, 10, 15 years, maybe even 20, where Schumer, Pelosi, Bernard Sanders, healthcare is a right. Remember him? These guys were all singing the same song about getting rid of corruption, getting rid of government waste, fraud, and abuse. You would think that this was a commercial and a ringing endorsement for Elon Musk and the Doge service. Listen to this.
We simply must make the cuts in waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare. We owe it to our country.
There is an enormous amount of waste and fraud and abuse in this government. When there is waste and fraud, you have an administration who should also be on top of that situation.
If we're going to eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare, it does mean we're going to cut some of that out. We want to cut the bad stuff and keep the good stuff.
So, again, that's a flashback, taking it back, a decade and a half or so. And these guys are more. And, again, that's Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders. These guys are fake, phony fraud. They don't care about it. Now that they have an actual opportunity to do that, they don't do anything. In fact, what's actually happening is you've got people inside the government that are now shredding documents. And if they can't shred them fast enough, they're putting them in burn bins. Not kidding. I'll get to that in a little bit. But that's what's happening there. And then you have Trump in the Oval Office today, meeting with the General Secretary of NATO. Listen to this.
You have to keep NATO strong. You have to keep it relevant. But the biggest thing we have to worry about right now is what's going on right now. I think the rest is going to take care of itself. I don't see this happening. This was a fluke. This was something that if we had a competent president, it would not have happened. The man was grossly incompetent. All you have to do is take a look at he signs by AutoPen. Who was signing all this stuff by AutoPen? Who would think you signed important documents by AutoPen?
Right, that's a great question. Who would do such a thing? I also want to get into the conversation about NASA. There were some NASA pilots that were stranded, and SpaceX was supposed to go rescue them. We're going to find out what's going on from that part of the world. And because I don't know much about that, I am not a space cadet, contrary to popular opinion. But I want to get your thoughts and opinions on all of this stuff, because we have some people that are on hold and they have some questions. So let's go here. Let's go to, let's see, it looks like we're going to Pittsburgh. We got a couple of people from Pittsburgh on the line. Let's see who was on first. Looks like we've got Dave in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on KDKA. Go right ahead, Dave.
Hey, Mr. Valdez, thanks so much for this show. Really enjoy. No, I just wanted to say, look, all this hysteria about the illegal immigration and, criminals. I got to tell you from personal experience, and I have a feeling most people know this is true. Most of them, they just want to live, provide for their families, send money home. They're more law-abiding than our filthy, evil, rotten people. You talk about crime.
I don't think anybody's arguing otherwise, though.
Right. You talk about crime. Enough of this hysteria. What would Jesus Christ say? Would he say, oh, we have no room for them? He was born in a
Jesus
barn.
would say to stick to the commandments, thou shalt not kill. When you have people that are raping people and murdering them, that's happened on more than one occasion, Dave, and that's a big no-no, right? Nobody should be killing people or raping them, let alone people that aren't even supposed to be here, right? That were imported by way of an open border from the Biden administration. So I wouldn't say, the hysteria is misplaced. I think the hysteria is well placed, especially to the mother of Jocelyn Nungarai or the mother of Laken Riley. These are horrific and horrible situations that should never, ever, ever have happened. And I guess maybe I don't know if you have children or not, but people who do have children definitely feel that pain as a parent. And that's where the hysteria comes from. But to your point, I don't think anybody's making the case that the majority of these people are criminals. I think Trump has been really clear. We just need to go after the criminals. And the fact that other countries are allowing their criminals to come to our country without being vetted, and the border just basically being open and using this app to bypass actual ports of entry to seek asylum where they would have been otherwise rejected because they don't meet the standard for an asylum-seeking claim. These are all big mistakes that were done, in my opinion, to sabotage this country, or at least to sabotage immigration law. And they've been corrected and are being corrected. So I think there are two distinct points. The one you make is accurate, that most illegal immigrants are law-abiding citizens. Yeah, I agree with that, or at least law-abiding individuals. And I think the second point as well, that there is hysteria. And I think it's well placed because we saw a level of crime in our country that we should never, ever have seen. Dave in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, thank you for your call. Let us continue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let's go to Joe. Joe's also on KDKA. Joe, go right ahead.
Hello, Rich. Great show as always, amigo.
Thank you.
Rich, I'm a Trump supporter, true and true. I understand what he's trying to do. Temporary inconvenience and a permanent improvement. But my question to you, Rich, is would you know the status of these 34 felony convictions that are being appealed? I'd like to see them thrown out. They should have never happened in the first place.
Well, they're not being appealed, and I'll tell you what happened there. So Judge Juan Merchan granted an unconditional discharge on all 34 counts, which affirmed that he was convicted of these felonies, but he does not have to face any further penalties for them. No fines, no jail time, no anything. That was the outcome. Now, this is a little bit of a catch-22 because as a private citizen, Trump can appeal these things. But as president, he in effect can't, because that would mean that they are prosecuting the president. And because you can't prosecute a sitting president, in many ways it means a sitting president also can't appeal these things. So that stuff is on hold. If he wants to appeal it to, expunge his record and whatnot, that is going to have to wait until he leaves the White House. But I guess the happy medium, at least from Judge Juan Merchan's eyes, was at least they've all been unconditionally discharged, meaning there's not a single condition on them. They've been discharged as 34 felony counts, and that's the sentence. So it's an interesting situation to be in, but it doesn't bar him from being president. It doesn't bar him from a lot of things, except potentially maybe carrying a gun as a private citizen, which once he's a private citizen, he can then engage in the appeal. So that's the outcome on that. And again, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. And let's see, one more. Let's go to Nick. Nick is in Chicago, Illinois on WLS. Nick, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. Thank you again. And you have always such a nice show.
Thank you.
I want to talk about, the Republican Massey of Kentucky. I believe Trump, he's a nice guy. He's principled. He's not the kind of guy you say, look, this has got to be done. Don't you understand that? I'm going to primary. It's been tried, I think, twice to primary him. That's not the way to go about with a man like him. And instead, it's better for Trump to recognize that he's a good guy. He's got his principles, and he can be convinced to go along more with Trump's projects and pursuits by Trump talking to the people of Kentucky who voted for him and asking those people, like, would you please contact Massey and explain to him that, all I want him to do is recognize that we have such a narrow majority, that one or two votes lost here and there, and another one means we won't get anything pass because the Democrats, with their extreme liberalism and extreme left-wingism now, is coming to the surface. If he would have just asked the people of Kentucky who voted for him to please contact Massey and ask
Well,
them
Nick, I think he took this approach, and he did it all throughout the campaign. This isn't the first time that Massey has kind of, broken rank here and done his own thing. And again, he's allowed to, right? I encourage everybody to vote their conscience and do what they feel is appropriate. However, I think Trump took that exact approach, saying, look, we did very well. We did very well in Kentucky, and he made his appeal to the people of Kentucky. And from that has emerged Daniel Cameron, and who's going to be running for McConnell's seat, and I guess others that are going to be joining the MAGA movement in a primary. So I think this is an opportunity for Trump, again, to test his political capital and say, look, I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt. You want to be an independent person, go right ahead, do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, I need people that are going to help me make sure that we get no tax on tips, that are going to help us pass these continuing resolutions, if that's what the administration is looking to do. For one, I want to see a balanced budget. And I don't know that we're going to get one just yet, right? So I understand every side of this, and I also understand the political ramifications of it. And when it comes to politics, a single congressman can make a lot of waves. Look at Matt Gaetz. Look at what happened with McCarthy, right? Lots of things can happen. But at the end of the day, you just got to make sure you bring that level of political capital to the table if you're going to be a thorn in the president's side. And I don't know if Thomas Massey does that or not, but we're going to find out when it's primary time. So we'll see how that ends up. Nick in Chicago, thank you for your call. Shout out to WLS. And amigos, I want to get a little bit of an update on this story from Fox News. SpaceX launch was scrubbed hours after Secretary Hegseth shared a message to the rescue mission crew wishing them Godspeed. The defense secretary highlighted the U.S. military's prominent role in the mission, saying this is Army, Air Force, and Navy tonight. So there's a whole lot that's happening there. And there was this crew of 10 people at the International Space Station. And I want to get, the skinny on what's going on there. And since I'm not an astronaut, I want to talk to somebody who was. So keep it locked right here. We're going to do that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And if you may have been following the news, there's a crew of international astronauts that were scheduled to take off to the International Space Station on a mission that would relieve the crew that's up there, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, allowing them to come back home after unexpectedly extending their journey. But that's going to have to wait a little longer because the crew that was about to go up there, that flight was paused. We're going to get a little bit of that. I have a quick clip on what they're doing with their free time. Check this out.
Butch and Suni, they both took spacewalks during this extended duration. 8 days turned into 8 months, or 9 months now. But Suni, because of this, with the 2 spacewalks, now holds the female record for spacewalks for time inside EVA and inside an EVA suit, working outside the space station. So that's really cool for her. She's a record holder and something she can be proud of and all Americans can be proud of.
So this 8-day trip has turned into an 8-month trip, and Trump has only been in office for 40 some odd days. So we can't blame this one on him. I want to know what's going on, why this stuff was paused, and when we can expect these people to come back home. I know I, for one, would likely be freaking out, even though it sounds like they like space and they're taking spacewalks. I think I'd be a little anxious to come home. I want to bring in our guest. Our guest is Dr. Charles Camarda. He's a former NASA shuttle astronaut, and he's the director of the Johnson Space Center engineering program. He's also the author of the book, Mission Out of Control. Dr. Charles Camarda, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Rich.
You bet.
Good to be back.
Yes, sir. And you sound a little far away. I hope you're not in outer space, but hopefully we can get some good audio for you. And tell us what's going on. Why did this mission get delayed in the first place?
Well, it all happened because there were issues with the Starliner, right? And so they had problems, Butch and Suni, when they were getting close to docking. 5 of the 28 thrusters that they used to position themselves accurately and to maneuver very accurately for docking, 5 of them went out. And so they had to kind of pause for a moment, and they had to first do some checks with some of those thrusters back up and running. And then they were finally able to dock.
Doc, you've become inaudible. I'm going to put you on hold for a second. Maybe we can get a better line for you, because I want to make sure everybody has the ability to hear what you have to say. But ultimately, what's going on here is there was some technical issue, and this crew's been up there, and it's taken forever to get the new crew up there. And just as the Air Force and the Secretary of the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, wished this team Godspeed, they too were hit with a hydraulic system issue that slowed this whole thing down. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get somewhere with this. Doc, I think we've got you back. How long do you think before they're actually able to get up there?
Well, I think once they get the mechanical and hydraulic issues squared away, which I'm hopeful they'll have that ready for tomorrow. They'll launch tomorrow. It'll take them about 12 hours to reach the station.
Oh, nice. Well, that's good to know. Well, I want to continue the conversation with you because I think there's a lot to this to understand, and many of us don't even know what really goes on. The routine goings on at the International Space Center. So hopefully you could stick around and kind of bring us up to speed on that. And let me remind the audience that we're on with Dr. Charles Camarda. He is a retired NASA shuttle astronaut and the engineering director at Johnson Space Center, the author of Mission Out of Control. That's the title of his book. And he's our guest. He's coming right back with us. We've got an astronaut who's given us the answers that we wouldn't otherwise get. So I appreciate that. Dr. Charles Camarda, stand by. And amigos, we're coming right back with you, your calls, and everything else we got lined up. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
What a kick in the guts. The space rescue mission was supposed to have started already. The spacecraft that's supposed to bring home Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams and end their 9-month ordeal was scheduled to have be in the skies right now, but instead that spacecraft is grounded. NASA called off today's launch of Endurance due to an issue with one of the arms holding the rocket in place. Here's how that information was passed on to the Endurance crew and the rest of the world.
And again, that hydraulics issue that's been mentioned several times here now, the only issue being tracked, it's related to the hydraulics on a clamp arm. And those clamp arms are located on the transporter erector around the second stage of Falcon 9.
SpaceX, LD on countdown 1. At this time, we are standing down from today to further address hydraulic release data.
So there you have it. The problem stemmed from a hydraulic system used to control one of the two clamps that hold on to the upper portion of the rocket. And this is what is grounding the SpaceX crew from getting up there and relieving the two astronauts that are up there already, Butch Wilmore, and Suni Williams. Now, they're at the International Space Center station, and I want to get a better understanding of what happens at the International Space Station. And to do that, we're going to check back in with Dr. Charles Camarda. He's a former retired NASA Space Shuttle astronaut and the engineering director at Johnson Space Center. He's also written the book Mission Out of Control, and he's with us now. Doc, help us understand what happens when you guys, the astronauts, get to go up to the International Space Station.
Well, it's kind of a really unique experience, of course. You approach the space station very slowly. You're monitoring it. You're looking at velocities as you're coming in. You're coming in very slow, and you once you dock, the docking mechanism captures you, pulls you in, make sure you have a nice seal so that they can pressurize the airlock. They open the hatch, and then you float in, and you're welcomed by your new teammates on the International Space Station.
Very exciting. Now, again, as I understand it, this was a SpaceX crew that was going up there, and NASA and SpaceX kind of split the task here along with the Russians. Is that right, or are there other partners involved?
Well, this was a space station crew that was being brought up by the Dragon capsule that SpaceX basically provides. Once we went away from Space Shuttle, we retired Space Shuttle. The next vehicle that was actually U.S. vehicle that took crew members to the space station was provided by the Dragon capsule, the first commercial vehicle that actually carries people to the space station.
Wow, very exciting. And when this is supposed to occur, and you say you think it's going to happen tomorrow, what do we expect the new crew to do? Is it a simple relief mission? They're just going to, hey, you guys have been up here way too long, we're taking over. Or is there a specific agenda of, here's what's going to happen now that we're up here?
No, there's a handoff, right? And so it takes about 2 days where they get briefed on all the systems, what the current experiments they're running, maybe some mechanisms that they might be having problems with, give them some idea of what their jobs are going to be. They have like a job that basically tests that they have to do every day or so. And so they brief them on how things are. Right now there's a leak that they're monitoring in the Russian segment. And so they want to tell them basically the status of their new home before they begin operating it.
It's like a real estate transaction. Fascinating stuff, honestly. I know nothing about this. Doc, tell us about your time with NASA and flights that you've been on that either went well or didn't.
Well, actually, I started late in life, Rich. I was the oldest rookie astronaut from NASA to fly in space. I was 53, but I was lucky enough to fly right after the Columbia accident with an amazing commander and an amazing crew. It was a very tough time. It was very emotional. It was very tense. And there were a lot of tests that we had to perform to understand and develop new technology and test it out before we start flying more shuttles and making sure those shuttles fly safe. We had 3 incidents when we flew that were critical, that could have cost us our lives. And these are things that happen. Every mission has anomalies, has problems.
You're flying in outer space, so I would imagine it comes with a degree of risk. What happened to you guys?
Well, the first thing, total random act on liftoff, we hit a buzzard. We had buzzards circling over the top of our vehicle. We hit it, and luckily it went over the bottom of the vehicle. If it would have gone over the other side, it could have gone through the windscreen, and we would have had to do a very risky abort maneuver and return back to Kennedy Space Center. And so that could have been very, very critical. We could have definitely had problems. The next thing that happened was also during the launch, a large piece of foam came off. It was a different piece that struck the Columbia, caused the Columbia accident, but it was even larger. Wow. And it went under our wing, just missed our wing. We could have been another failed mission, another critical problem. And then the next thing that happened when we were in orbit, we had all these new procedures. And so we pulled this special maneuver where Eileen Collins, when we get close to the space station, does a backflip, shows the belly of the vehicle to the crew on the space station, and they photograph it. And when they were photographing it, they noticed that something wasn't right. There was a piece of material sticking out of the belly of the vehicle. And so not too many people know this, but we had to perform an emergency spacewalk. Soichi Noguchi and Steve Robinson went outside the vehicle and had to pull these two pieces of material from the belly of our vehicle. Otherwise, we would have burned up during Earth entry.
Wow. That's interesting, right? Because you kind of forget, at least me, I'm hearing this stuff and I'm realizing you guys are scientists and you're flying this big space shuttle. And you're in space, and then you're like, oh, crap, we need a body man, we need the mechanic. You are the body man and the mechanic, right? I mean, you don't really have these options in space.
Yeah, what most people don't know is I had a list of people in my crew notebook that were the experts because I worked with them for 22 years when I was a researcher. And I actually called the person up at home that did the analysis that basically said we needed to do this emergency EVA. And we decided as a crew on orbit that, we need to tell the folks on the ground, we need to perform this emergency EVA.
Wow. Now, Doc, not such a space question, but you sound like people that I grew up with in Brooklyn, New York. Where are you from?
I'm from Ozone Park, Rich. Where are you from?
I'm from Midwood in Brooklyn originally, and I hear the New York. It's just pouring through. Ozone Park in the building, everybody. That's great. So we sent some people to space. That's fantastic. I love that. Very cool. Well, Doc, I mean, this is a very interesting conversation. I don't have these every day. Tell everybody that's listening, I know we had you on for your book in the past, but if you could take a minute or two and just let everybody know about Mission Out of Control, a quick sentence or two on what the book is about and where they can get a copy.
Sure thing. Well, I worked for NASA for 46 years. I love NASA. However, NASA has problems. And so the first half of the book talks about the problems and the things NASA has to fix. The second half of the book talks about how do you fix these problems that many other organizations like Boeing have. You can get the book by going on missionoutofcontrolbook.com, or you can go to Amazon.
Outstanding. Folks, the book is called Mission Out of Control. The author, Dr. Charles Camarda, my neighbor from Ozone Park, and it's been a pleasure talking to you again. Hope to have you on again soon, Doc.
Anytime, Rich. Enjoyed it.
You bet. God bless, and thanks for your service to the country. And amigos, your calls and more coming up right now. Open phones across America. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Study finds that marriage triples the risk of obesity for men, but not for women. So, fellas, if you're married, you better get it in gear, right? Start taking some of those injections, start hitting the gym, start cutting the carbs. That's interesting. Anyway, I want to get to your thoughts on all sorts of things that are happening. We've got a couple of calls here. Let's go to the phones. Open phones across America, 833-482-5337. I want to go to Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Check in with Larry. Larry, go right ahead.
God, I'm so happy to speak with you, and I'm looking for some agreement and reassurance and backing in this concept as I've watched in joy of the Doge operation coming out with greater announcements of cutting back. And then I began to, and presently, I think they're at about 500 billion. And yet, tonight I see that they're going to pass this bill of stuff that's already, in some part, already spent, and some is being spent, and some of it will be spent in whatever time is left between now and the end of the fiscal year. But this is $2 trillion. Now, and what has to happen now is for individual Americans to say no more damn spending, cut off the water or do whatever you have to do, but stop spending. We cannot go down. We wouldn't do this in our personal lives, on our credit cards, and lose our home and lose everything and go into bankruptcy. So we must demand at this point, no, don't take this bill. No more spending. Stop it now. Don't go one more day of spending $200 trillion. They're spending, as you know, as much for just the paying the interest as they're paying on the Defense Department.
Really well put, Larry. I want to say I agree with a whole lot of what you're saying because you're not wrong. I do think that this particular bill, though, is $4.5 billion. I might be wrong on that. Last time I looked at it, that's what it was. It may have ended up somewhere else after the vote, so I'll double check on that. But what I'm going to say is, yes, there's a few things here, right? A couple of insights I'll give you. I don't think I have an answer for you. I think I'm going to give you some perspective. I, like you, would love our government to be very small and to say, hasta aquí llegamos. Enough is enough. This is the last stop. No more. No más. But it's not up to me. There are people that we have to work with in Congress, like Chuck Schumer, like Nancy Pelosi, like Adam Schiff, like Jasmine Crockett, right, in both houses of Congress. And in order to work with these people, you got to get certain things done. This is how it works. So we're not always going to have the win that we'd like to have. Now, when you have all the control of the scalpel, like Trump does with Musk, and as you could see, that's not going with unchallenged either, right? That's met with a lot of disdain. But he's doing it, and he's fighting the fights. You can't lose every single fight, and you can't win every single fight, right? There has to be this happy medium somewhere. And I think when you have too many happy mediums is when they'll label you a rhino and a uniparty and all of this stuff. And I get it because we can't continue to spend. I totally get it. I think there's a time and a place for everything, and we're on the right track. And you gotta pick your wins and your losses here. So I look at it from this perspective. Trump comes in and he's like, look, let's cut this. Let's dismantle USAID. Let's get these people confirmed. Let's try and take out the Department of Education. You've got Randy Weingarten out there. She's freaking out because that may actually happen. You got Linda McMahon that's working from the inside to bring the whole agency down, the way Marco Rubio brought down USAID. We're talking about 40-something days, and we're seeing this type of activity. So like you, I love what Doge is doing. However, we have to still play ball with this other side, and we have to make sure certain things are funded, and we don't want to, again, I shut down the government. Yes, I do it. I do it to prove to people we're going to live just fine. But this was the move they made, right? We had Byron Donalds on this program a couple of weeks back, and he said we need to increase the debt ceiling. And I said, wow, that's interesting. I haven't heard Republicans mention that before. Why? And he basically said we have to protect the good faith and credit of the United States. We have to make sure that we don't destroy what we have already while trying to fix what we have. And I get that. That's part of the philosophy I espouse, which is not burn it all down and rebuild it. It's fix what you have. So I may not even agree with this stuff half the time, but I understand why they're doing it. And I guess my hope is in they and I having the same end goal, which is, like you said, to eliminate the fact that we need to borrow $2 trillion to cover debt service. That has to end. And I think this, while it doesn't seem like a step in that direction, I think it actually is. It's the best I can give you. Larry, Charleston, South Carolina, really well put. Thank you, sir. And amigos, WTMA, by the way, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue the conversation. We bring it over to Canada, checking in with our buddy Tony out of Montreal, listening on WVMT. Tony, go for it, brother.
How you doing, Rich? I just wanted to mention free speech and Miss Crockett and the ilk of the Democrats, where free speech, according to them, is the promotion of criminality, corruption, and cash. And they are also pushing the limits of free speech because they try to enhance their vision by perpetuating violence like you see today. They will support Hamas, and then they will go to Trump Towers, and they will create a disaster at Trump Towers to intimidate Trump himself or his staff or his people. And they do the same with Elon, trying to burn his facilities, etc. So I'm just wondering, Rich, how does it become that the left can perpetuate violence by perpetuating their agendas, but they seem to always say we should have free speech, which is an exchange of ideas, but they say nothing. Nobody, including Fetterman, says nothing about an attempt of assassination on a presidential candidate twice. And no one says anything about the BLMism movement that now is continuing in the Hamasism movement. So BLMism is gone. We got rid of that movement and with the violence, according to what they did to federal institutions. And now it's a new issue. It's no longer BLM. How about the indigenous people of America? Why isn't anyone standing for the indigenous?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. I think the left has historically conflated free speech with their ability to be radicals. And that's what we're seeing. And I'm glad that it's being tamped down and curtailed. Tony, thank you for your call. Shout out to everybody in Canada. Amigos, I come back tomorrow. But for some of you, you're about to hear a great interview coming up with Chief Vitiello. So keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.